Hey everyone, and welcome to episode 2 of Healers. In this week's episode, I'm speaking with Sharon Murphy. Now, Sharon lives in Cork, and she's one of those people who's kind of awe-inspiring in the array of talents and experience she brings. She's a school teacher by profession, she's a trained youth counsellor, and she's heavily involved in the setup and running of Neighbour Food, which is a network of online and in-person markets in the Cork area supporting local food producers. She's a specialist in integrated energy therapy, kinesiology, and emotional freedom technique. Every time I meet Sharon, I learn something new about her. For example, during this visit, I discovered that she's a trained lifeguard as well. And even during my visit, my time there, the tide happened to be at the optimum level in the River Lee, right across the road from her house. So even though we filmed this in October, afterwards, she went for her swim, regardless of the October air and water temperatures. In this conversation, we cover a lot of ground, from the health issues that led Sharon into the healing space, to why so many people feel suboptimal today. We talk about the hidden effects of the pandemic restrictions on people, how harsh words heard early in life can drive emotional wounds which manifest as stress or as blockers to performance. And we also talk about energy therapies and how they're becoming more and more popular in today's world. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. And now I bring you Sharon Murphy. So I'm here with Sharon Murphy. Sharon, how are you doing?
I'm good, Peter. How are you?
Great. I'm great. Thank you very much. And thanks a million for the hospitality and for hosting me in your house.
Delighted to have you.
Thank you very much. And it's great to be making episode 2 of Healers right here with you. And this is one that I wanted to do actually for a while because, you know, I've tuned into your meditations. I've been to many of your meditations and I know exactly what you're like, and being in your presence is quite healing alone. And I've heard then obviously that you're into EFT, emotional freedom technique. And then the others are the kinesiology, of course,
and integrated energy therapy.
Fantastic. So we could be here for a long time talking about this.
We could.
Let's try to squeeze a lot into half an hour or so anyway,
yes.
at least, and see how we get on.
Yeah.
So let me just start by asking you if you could just maybe give us a flavour of, what brought you to this point and your interest in these different healing modalities, be it, IET or kinesiology or whatever, because I know you have a real interest in this field.
Well, I suppose it's like many people, it's the wounded healer, that it's our own illness or our own issues that will drive us to look for healing in the area. So I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia about 15 years ago, and I'd have always had an interest in alternative practices and things, but no real need to engage with them because I was relatively healthy. I wasn't living the healthiest lifestyle, but I was relatively healthy. And then I got the flu. Everybody in the house got the flu. Everybody else got better and I never got better. And the fibromyalgia just sort of bit. And I spent, I suppose, maybe 5 years in the wilderness of highly medicated, feeling very powerless and everything. And then I started the journey of just trying lots of different modalities to see what would work. And I can give you a long list of what doesn't work. But I found certain things, even if they didn't cure me, which is a strange word, I think, they certainly gave me some healing. Okay. And what I began to understand is that healing comes in all different guises and modalities. And most of the issues or problems that are people feeling suboptimal rather than unwell even they're multifaceted. It could be mental, it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be nutritional. And so you start a big long exploration of what to do. So each area then needs addressing. So I was always fascinated. My background is in health and fitness anyway. I taught exercise and trained people to teach exercise and stuff like that for years.
Sure.
So I had a background in anatomy and physiology and other things like that. But this got me into the whole alternative side, and I just loved meeting people who were at the top of their game. Okay. Meeting other healers and learning from them. And then I found EFT, and that was the first real modality that I completely clicked with. And
how did you find EFT?
It was through a friend of mine, Pascal. She's a fabulous healer herself. She does massage, EFT, rides a Harley, plays bass guitar, very cool person, and she invited me to a training weekend. So I did a training weekend in Rochestown Park Hotel up the road, and it just, baggage that I had carried for years just disappeared. Literally to the point where I was dealing on something that went back to second class in school, and an issue about being told I wasn't good enough, which I think many of us carry. And literally I was so used to that message or that thing that when it was gone, I was looking around the room going, where did that go? It literally felt that empowering to just let it go and be free.
Fascinating. And
that was where EFT started, and then latterly I kind of went down a more if you want to say spiritual route, and found another amazing healer, Mary Doherty, and through her started having treatments in IET, and then went on and trained as an IET practitioner. And then in the last couple of months, last year and a half, I had been told by some very wise people around me that I should study kinesiology, but I'd been putting it off.
Okay.
And I found an interesting kinesiologist, Sheila O'Hanlon, who I think if anyone has seen her videos online, they're fantastic. She does these absolute nuggets of information in 3 minutes.
Okay.
And
is she Irish?
She's Irish. She's based in North Cork.
Okay.
And absolutely brilliant. And she's now my teacher. So I enrolled in the kinesiology diploma.
Fantastic.
And I've been studying that now. Between Balanced Health and the kinesiology diploma, I've been studying kinesiology for over a year, and I'm at the stage of taking clients officially for that as well.
Fantastic.
And what I love about the kinesiology is that it actually encapsulates some of what we do in EFT and some of the other modalities as well. Comes at everything from all the sides.
Okay. So there's a lot going on, right?
Is,
you're one busy person. Okay,
Yeah.
I got it. So if we break it down, let's say we've got those three.
Yeah.
I'm particularly curious about EFT
Yeah.
at the start, right? Because let's just focus on that for about 10 minutes. But before we get into EFT, can I just ask you on a personal level, really, I suppose, about what you might call the stress-scape in the world today?
Yeah.
Now, again, this is just something that I want to ask of the different people that I'm going to be speaking to. I asked of Alison in the last video what she sees in terms of how people are presenting.
Yeah.
So that, and the reason I'm doing that is so that people who are watching on the less stress space, they're going to say, well, I identify with that.
Yeah.
You know, so and then maybe EFT or whatever might be a good option for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how are you seeing it manifest, stress and other things manifest in people today?
You know what I've been saying to people for the last year and a half is, if 2 years ago I said Peter and all of Peter's family are going to be locked into their house for weeks on end, they won't be able to do 90% of the normal things that they do, they won't be able to see friends and family or whatever. If I had said that to a group of people, we would have all rallied around, we'd have come to your house with food, we'd have been kind, we'd have done everything to help you. But because that happened to all of us together, we didn't have the sympathy for each other and the sympathy for ourselves. And I think people haven't realised or haven't been allowing themselves to feel the natural stress and the natural anxiety that comes with the experience that we've all been through. And we say we're all in it together, stiff upper lip, or, you know, I learned yoga during lockdown, or whatever it is. You know, there was almost a competition to see how much we could do self-improvement and all of that. So I think people have, maybe what I'm seeing is that once you give people a little bit of space to say, yeah, it has been tough, hasn't it? And it has been difficult, and how are you feeling about it? It's almost like they're nearly afraid to go there, and then when they do, there's a great relief in just acknowledging it. And the more I study health, particularly around emotions and emotional healing, is that we can't really ever let go of current or older hurts or issues until we acknowledge them. There's the healing comes in the acknowledgement and then the letting go. And I think for a lot of people, the most powerful thing they need at the moment, maybe they don't realise it, or maybe I'm wrong, but my sense is that it's just to acknowledge what we've been through, on top of all the normal stresses that people are having, but that we have been through something. We're probably all in post-traumatic stress, you know, as a collective, and it's to acknowledge that and to allow safe space to acknowledge that, but then to find what is it we move on to. You know, now we've let it go. We're in a new paradigm. We're in a new way of being in the world anyway. I think everyone's life has changed. And that in itself, if you think about it, 2 years ago, if I was seeing someone or you were talking to someone, any kind of change is difficult. And we've had all this change pushed on us with very little recognition that it's difficult. So I think change and accepting change, and because I think a lot of people feel as well that we're in this sort of suspended animation until it gets back to normal. And maybe then when you start to realise that maybe normal isn't coming back, there's a huge stress around that. So how am I going to cope in this new way of being, and what do we have to change? So I think that's the biggest thing, is just people can benefit from being given the space to acknowledge what we've been through, and to allow themselves to say, yes, it has been stressful, yes, it has been difficult, as opposed to, being strong for everybody else around them.
Yeah, I think you put that really nicely. In particular, one point sticks out for me, and that is the fact that it's on top of everything else that people have been dealing with, because I'm convinced that a lot of people, let's say, who work maybe in high-powered jobs, or even anybody, who just coping with everyday life, a lot of people are at the upper limit
already
of their stress as it is.
Yeah.
But then to have a lot of abnormal events, I suppose, piled on top of that, which brings so much negative change, an impact, let's say, that then can make people rise above the level of their usual tolerance, for stress. And that's where we're starting to see problems. At least it's where I'm starting to see problems in my practice, and with the people I meet, for sure, Yeah. So that's really interesting. But so let's double back onto the juicy stuff. So the EFT, okay?
Yeah.
So emotional freedom technique.
Yeah.
I have to confess, I hadn't heard of it before. Before I started.
It's a quirky little thing.
Absolutely. So let's just focus on that for a start, because and it seems quite, from what I've heard, it's quite practical.
Extremely practical,
and that people can maybe apply in their everyday lives. So talk us through, what is EFT?
So emotional freedom technique. Basically, the best example I could give you is if we go back to that thing that happened to me in second class, and you could have been sitting beside me in second class, and that teacher came in and told me my handwriting was terrible and I was useless and I wasn't trying hard enough and I'd never be good enough. Okay. And I took that message and I embedded it in me. And any time I would go back to doing something, there'd always be this little voice in my head. Not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. So I attached an emotion to that event.
Okay.
May not have been intended by the teacher, never intended to cause it for that long, but it embedded in me.
Unintentionally.
I put an emotional charge into my body that I held on to. Okay. You were sitting in the seat beside me, it went over your head. But you were there at the same event, but you didn't take the same emotion out of it.
Okay.
And so what EFT can allow you to do is literally, we could play out that scenario and I can go back to that emotion and to that feeling. And by tapping on various points of the body, which since I've studied kinesiology, I now understand are all energy meridians, which is lovely how the knowledge layers up. And it helps me to just detach the emotion from the event. And so because that emotion embedded when I was young, that message stayed with me: you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And any of us who've had a Catholic upbringing in the convent schools, or the brothers can tell you that's probably a common one. So it's the not good enough, not good enough. And so I could then just detach from that, and now my actions will be done without that shadow, without that veil hanging over. And it's just a simple technique. We can run through something in it if you'd like.
Sure.
It involves what I said earlier, which is it's a way of very safely acknowledging emotions.
Okay.
And as I said, I think in the particular times that we're in, acknowledging what you're going through, you're already healing once you say it out. A problem shared, a problem halved is there's a reason that has stayed with us. And then by tapping on it, we can reduce it. And what we end up with generally is there are layers to every problem. So as we tap, the first layer will fall away. So often people might start with saying, I'm really, really angry. But as we keep tapping, that anger will turn to fear, or it'll turn to sadness, because every problem has layers under it. And what we can do in EFT is just keep tapping until we've got to the bottom of the layers.
Okay.
And that would be a session with someone who's a practitioner. Okay. But then we could also use EFT, like I had a very stressful workplace, for example, and I'd be driving into work going just to get ready, just to be in a clear space when I'd get in.
Okay.
So maybe we can share one or two of those shorter techniques.
Absolutely, and I'd be very curious in a minute. So really, I suppose the clue's in the name. Okay, so it's based on emotions. Well, at least there's a connection to emotions.
Yeah.
And those emotions are connected directly, let's say, to, as you say, to events that could have happened in your life, a potential negative event that has now translated into a subconscious stressor. I mean,
a belief that we carry with us in.
Absolutely, and our beliefs do shape our reality and
Absolutely.
our world.
Yeah.
I mean, in a practical way, I remember meeting people in industry absolutely convinced that they will never stand up and confidently give a presentation to a room.
That's a huge one for people.
Yeah, and and so they go to Toastmasters and they try to improve, and that is possibly because of a negative event that could have happened to them or something that was told to them.
Yeah.
Maybe years earlier, and they haven't joined the dots back
Absolutely.
to that. And then the second part of it is energy meridians that have a direct connection with
organs and with the flow of energy through the body. Yeah, and it's again, that's an area that a lot of people don't really understand. We have energy running up and down the body, yin and yang forces, and different meridians have different starting points and finishing points in the body. And it was only afterwards when I started studying the meridians I was going, oh, but of course that's that meridian. Okay, so there is a physiological effect to the tapping. There's an energetic effect to the tapping, and there's a psychological effect to the speaking out of the problem.
Okay. Wow.
So there's a couple of things happening. And what's wonderful about EFT, if you go online and look at EFT, all the resources are shared. It's a very open practice. Okay. People are making a living using it as a practice, but equally people are just sharing it because it's so useful. It cannot do any harm. Okay. Tapping your body isn't going to do you any harm. There is no negative side effect to this.
Okay.
So it's a harmless technique that can do an awful lot of good. In fact, it's so simple and so easy, it's often dismissed because it's very powerful and deceptively simple and easy.
Can you actually give me an example where you've seen it work for somebody else other than yourself? Because obviously you're bought into it.
In my previous career I was a teacher, and just give you a simple example is and part of the syllabus was the students had to learn life saving, and there was no choice supposedly, but every year there'd be one or two who had a phobia from being young, having a scare and being terrified of the water, and I would offer them EFT, and invariably they'd all be able to go swimming afterwards.
Wow.
Simple as that.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we'd go back and we'd just track where did it come from, and they wouldn't be afraid, and we just take the fear out of it.
My God.
It's very useful for things like phobias, things like that. Yeah, and
I'm cringing at because my phobia would be I know, grown man, halfway through life. Spiders still, would still freak me out, It sounds incredibly childish, but Well, we could use that as an example if you wanted. Absolutely, I'm really curious. Do you want to try just for pure demonstration? Do you want to do something
Absolutely, for
there
pure
now?
demonstration. So, if you're happy to,
I'm 100% happy.
Okay,
to.
so what I'd like you to do is to just get in touch with thinking about that fear of spiders for a second. Okay.
Do I have to pause or do anything in particular now?
No. So just get in touch with how you feel when you think about a spider. Doesn't even have to be a big one. Just yeah. And let it come in because you're in a safe space. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how does that feel?
It's not pleasant. I would say probably, and we're talking directly about handling them actually.
Yeah, let's imagine it.
So about, I suppose about an 8.
Okay. You'd be surprised how many times I get an 11 out of 10 when I ask that
really?
question. Yeah.
I've been working on it to up to 2.
So we're at an 8. Okay. So, and when you think about a spider, we'll say running across your hand or something like that, and you're not alone in that now, where would you feel that sensation, that emotion in your body? Where does that feeling manifest itself?
Yeah, it manifests, I suppose, in 2 places: my hands and my stomach.
Okay, so, and would you call it fear? Would you call it anxiety?
It feels. I think it feels more like anxiety.
Okay, so even though the thought of a spider would make you very anxious, is that? Yeah. Yeah. And you feeling it in your stomach? We'll just focus on the stomach. What's the feeling in the stomach? Is there a colour, a shape?
I can if I visualize it, it's like a ball. It's like a black ball, to be honest.
So a black ball of anxiety.
Yeah.
Would that be a fair description? Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to just take my glasses off for ease of demonstration, and you're going to copy me. And You're going to follow me and say what I'm saying. So we start here. Okay.
Okay.
So even though.
So we start here.
Yeah. Even though I feel an anxious ball of stress in my stomach.
I feel an anxious ball of stress in my stomach.
When I think about spiders.
When I think about spiders.
I completely love and accept myself anyway.
I completely love and accept myself anyway.
Even though spiders.
Give
me a ball of anxiety in my stomach.
Give me a ball of anxiety in my stomach.
I completely love and accept myself anyway.
I completely love and accept myself anyway.
Even though thinking about spiders
Even though thinking about spiders
gives me anxiety and I have a big ball of stress in my stomach,
gives me anxiety and I have a big ball of stress in my stomach,
I completely love and accept myself anyway.
I completely love and accept myself anyway.
Anxious. So you're going up to the top of your head. Anxious.
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 Side of the eye. Anxious.
Anxious.
On the lip. Anxious.
Anxious.
Stressed.
Stressed.
And now you're coming down onto the collarbone. Stressed.
Stressed.
Anxious. Just on the t-shirt line there. Yeah.
Okay.
And then down the fingers. Spiders. Fear.
Spiders. Fear.
Anxious.
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 Is another word coming in? Stressed. Any other word coming in for you? Does it still feel like anxiety or fear or stress?
You know what? It's I can feel it starting to dissipate.
Yeah.
Stress.
Stress. Worried. Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Yeah.
Uncomfortable. So,
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Unhappy. Uncomfortable.
No, uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable. Uncomfortable.
Uncomfortable.
Not comfortable.
Not comfortable.
Not okay.
Not okay.
Not okay.
Not okay.
You're looking at it going away, I think. And
Yeah.
So we keep tapping here just for a second. Take a nice deep breath. Now on a scale of 1 to 10.
I'm even struggling to quantify it. I think, I'd even be fibbing if I said a 2 at this stage.
There's EFT.
That's ridiculous. I'm like, I'm actually for once, I'm lost for words. That's bizarre, but in a great
You're
way.
literally, as I said earlier, you're almost looking around to see where did it go.
I'm kind of struggling to, because I've kind of got this logical approach to things. I'm struggling to think of the mechanism as to how it would have worked. I'm thinking, am I just distracted from the thought of spiders or what? But whatever it is, the thought isn't as unpleasant at all.
No.
You know, that is fantastic. Yeah.
It's,
Thank you.
every time I use it, I come back to it and go, why don't I use this more often? Because it is that simple and that effective. Yeah.
My God.
And phobias and fears really do lend themselves to it. You could see that, But day-to-day problems as well, because what you can do in an hour-long session with someone is you can explore the layers of the problem. That's fairly straightforward. That obviously is something in childhood you got a scare and it just, it grows. But all fears and phobias have those roots. So, yeah, it's that effective.
Wow. Okay, I think we're done here. No, I'm kidding. That's fantastic. Okay, all right. And quite practical, because I could imagine if I was going to be going into a boardroom to make a presentation or to do something that, or to remove that spider from the bath or whatever it was, I could imagine doing that.
You could even
very
actually
practically.
very quickly. You could even just do that, and that alone, you wouldn't even have to say anything.
Really?
That will, because your body now will remember that we dealt with this fear like that before. So if you were heading into the bathtub to take out the spider and it was starting to come up again, even just that little bit of tapping will help.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine that happening. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's something that people can apply like that.
I have a quicker version which I can show you that kind of is useful for everything.
Okay.
And I often say to parents especially that this is a very useful one with kids. So it's called Faster EFT.
Okay.
And with that, you don't have to go into the same elaborate detail about how does it feel, what, you just have to name the emotion. Mm-hmm. And so let's say anxiety, and you just using the double fingers, you just go, I release and let 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 go. Peace.
Okay. So you touched about 5 or 6 meridian points there,
so
around
just
the face,
the same ones again,
and
over
the
the head.
collar,
Yeah.
temples, cheeks,
Around the eyes, the three around the eyes,
eyes,
above the lip, below the lip,
below the lip,
on the collarbone.
collarbones, right?
And then instead of what we did there and back here, just one wrist holding the other.
Okay.
And
then and release.
release.
Kind of
And
breath.
3 of those will take you out of whatever's that immediate stress that you're going through.
And the mantra is I release and
I
let
release
go.
and go, let go. And you can name it if you want. I release anger and let go. And it's a great one. I had a superior, we'll say, and I would be walking down before I'd get there,
Okay.
so that I would get into that calm space before dealing with someone.
Yeah.
And what that'll do, and there's one other small technique that is very useful for it as well, which I'll show you in a sec. But it's just, I think when dealing with stress, that it's when we're most stressed that we're least likely to use the tools that'll help us, that we can't see the wood for the trees. It's when we're most stressed that we'll reach for the cup of coffee or go on social media that'll stress us further, as opposed to taking the breath and slowing down. And you can see that's what it does. It just lets you separate a little bit. So one last technique, if I can, when we pick another little problem that you're stressed about at the moment. Let's just see. You don't need to tell me, okay?
Okay.
So people watching can even try this while you're doing it, okay? So just think of a problem that's stressing you right now.
Okay, I'm thinking of a problem.
And just put your hand to your forehead.
Okay.
And just pull up slightly, okay?
Pull the skin back.
Yeah, and just keep thinking about the stressor. And if you want to accentuate it, you can put your hand on the back of the head as well, down, we say, at the lower end of the head here.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is from kinesiology. This isn't EFT, but as I said, they're very closely linked. So you keep thinking about the stress, and you're going to find a very similar effect in a minute, and that it just gets a little bit harder and a little bit harder to think about the stress.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing as well. It's what I experienced there was almost like an inability. The way you can crystallize out a thought, and I would be visual. I can see what I see the issue rather than feel it.
Okay. Right.
So I'm seeing the issue there, and I was just finding it more and more difficult to see that issue, to kind of conjure up the picture in my head, so to speak, of the stressor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did that with a room full of 40 women the other night, and they were all kind of going, oh, where'd it go? So
Wow.
so these are amazing simple tools that can make a big difference.
Fantastic. And they've been road tested with a room up full of all those ladies. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, I know I'm conscious we have so much to talk about, so let's just park that EFT for a second. Okay, now I'm going to give you the choice. Would you like to talk about, I know you're dabbling in, are you moving in kinesiology circles, or IET, which is integrated energy therapy? So it's your call. What would you like to look at?
I'd like to talk about the kinesiology, actually, because what I see with kinesiology is it what really has drawn me to it and made me glad that this is the road I'm going down, is it pulls from all the modalities. So when we encounter a problem, so kinesiology, basically, to explain to people, is we use a system of muscle testing, and we get the body talking to us. And I can give you a simple example. If you want to put your hand out for a second to me, right? And I'm just going to test this muscle, and we're just going to resist when I push down.
Yep.
Okay. So you're just resisting against my pressure.
Yep.
Okay. Now I'd like you to think about a stressor again. And you see how much weaker your body went? Okay. With kinesiology, if I'm looking at a particular issue with, let's say we test a muscle and we find that it's weak on the brain organ meridian, then I have 4 options to ask your body what it wants, how to deal with that, because as we said, every problem has a few layers to it. So we can look at the mental aspect. So what stresses are you dealing with? And we have techniques to handle, to deal with those. We can look at the nutrition around the brain. We might look at the foods that you're taking in the chemical aspect. So if you're drinking a lot of coffee, for example, it's going to be stressing the brain.
Guilty.
Yeah. And then we can be looking at the energetic and electrical, as we call it, or energetic side of things, which to me then I can see the link to the integrated energy therapies there, which is a much more just touching various points in the body and allowing energies to release. So it's a very kind of more ephemeral treatment. Whereas with the kinesiology, I would trace the energy meridians on your body, and you'd be surprised at the difference that would make. So with kinesiology, what we do is we really start to ask the body questions. The body gives us answers, and then we find solutions to it, and it in the same way as your reaction there to EFT is how I react when techniques work in kinesiology at the moment. I'm just going, oh my God, there's another amazing thing we can do. Oh my God, there's another amazing thing we can do. And what's really lovely about it is, if somebody's coming for a series of kinesiology treatments, we're generally saying come for 3, because after that you probably won't need it anymore. It's not one of these like long-term things you need to be coming, and then maybe coming back every now and again for, just to keep in balance or something goes out. But
no, I've been for kinesiology before, and I mean, I am open-minded, so I mean, I would buy into absolutely, the energy meridian side of it, and the fact that my body is telling you,
that's
according to certain cues, my body will tell you because of the muscle testing what's needed, more or less, so it's not, let's say, I'm wondering how to describe it. It's not a mainstream medical type of therapy, or is it? It's something that's a little bit off the beaten track, and not taken from its validity, because it's absolutely valid. I've felt amazing coming out of kinesiology before, even though I have to confess I didn't truly understand the operating mechanism. So can you just boil it down for somebody who's brand new to it, into, again, I think you might have summarized it earlier, but again, how it works, and I suppose what it's intended to do, really.
So it works on the basis of muscle testing. So in a typical treatment, we do a thing called a wheel balance, and that's 15 muscles that we go around the body and check them. And each muscle that's weak tells us a story. And each muscle that we test is related to a meridian and an organ. And so once we hit a weak muscle, then we know there's an imbalance there. And it could be that, for example, I had a treatment the other day and my pancreas was off. But the reason my pancreas was off is my adrenals were firing too high, and the energy wasn't flowing from my adrenals to the pancreas. The description that my kinesiologist said, the pancreas is the bank, but the adrenals have the bank card. And so it was controlling the energy going to the pancreas. So what we're getting into is the layers that of problems that build up over time. And what kinesiology does ideally is catches the imbalances when they're small. So if I test a muscle and there's an inherent weakness there are different modes that you can put your fingers in that will tell you whether that's in the electrical, the physical, the chemical, the nutritional, or the structural mode, and then we can explore down that avenue. So basically what kinesiology does is it asks the body questions, starts to answer them, gives it options. So for example, if I was, as we were saying, maybe checking with the brain, I might put a supplement then into that circuit, and the body reads that I'm putting, let's say, vitamin A on you, and if it tests strong, then we know your body needs vitamin A, and we can then recommend that supplement for you. People, I suppose, mostly associate kinesiology, and the simplest way to understand it is in food sensitivity testing. So we can test foods to see how your body is reacting. If your muscle stays strong, then that food is okay for you. If your muscle goes weak, then that food is probably not suiting you at the moment. And we wouldn't be saying you're allergic or you have to go off it or anything like that, but we'd suggest to take it out. The best example I give you is we have a friend in common. He came to me for a session and milk tested badly for him. And I said, you might just consider a substitute, try oat milk. He came back next week. The whole family and everybody he worked with was on oat milk. It was the best thing ever happened to him. He was feeling so much better or whatever. So the lovely thing about kinesiology is it's often the little things that we do every day that we don't realise are making us feel bad, because we do them every day. So we're never not doing them. So we never know how much better we'd feel if we didn't do them. And then it adds in little things that you can do every day that you know are going to be good for you and are going to make you feel better.
Fantastic.
So it's a lovely holistic approach. In no way can it harm you. You're just testing a few muscles, and the body will tell you if what you're suggesting as a treatment is right for the client, because it'll either test strong or weak. So it's very binary. And you so probably experienced
what
that.
What kind of, let's say, I suppose, issues would you recommend people go along to kinesiology with?
Initially, people will come because of physical issues, and it's often when they've tried the conventional route first. Fibromyalgia would be a common enough one. Sleep issues. And a not so popular or glamorous topic that very few people talk about, constipation. It's a huge issue for people. It's not a widely spoken thing. But if that's not working right, then nothing is working right. Structural issues, it can be, certain aches, pains. But generally it'll be physical ones that will come. Syndromes, where people have gluten intolerances, and maybe checking around food. Those are usually the first ones. But what we'll find then is on a second or a third treatment is we'll get more to the underlying maybe emotional issues and
Yeah.
the nutritional ones and so on.
So, I mean, I always think of, let's say, a general picture of wellness as being in 4 parts. If I get my mindfulness or meditation going well, exercise, diet, and sleep. And you've referred to diet and sleep there immediately.
Absolutely.
So that's 50% of the big 4 for me.
Yeah.
Can be positively affected by kinesiology.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. And are you open to being taking people for kinesiology sessions?
I'm mid training, but we're encouraged to get clients because I've loads of techniques that I'm now fully au fait with. So yeah, happy to take people, and I'm doing half price at the moment because I'm only halfway through the study. So if people want to get in touch, I'm really happy to help people out.
So what I'm going to do obviously is I'm going to attach your, if you don't mind, maybe an email address or something like that.
That'd be great.
To this at the end.
And obviously people will be very welcome on the meditation any night as well.
Which I will put the link into for everybody who wants to tune into a fabulous meditation every evening at about 8 o'clock Irish time, isn't it?
I don't make it on every evening, but I certainly 3-4 nights a week, and it's a shared space.
Yeah.
Started as a consequence of lockdown, just for somewhere for people together.
Super.
And the more that join us, the happier we are.
So I'm just, and to round out this conversation, because I could spend actually a session, and we may well do that specifically on kinesiology at some stage down the road. Yeah. But if we could just turn our attention to the third modality that you're interested in, and that's the integrated energy healing, right? So would you mind again just giving us a high-level overview of what that's about?
So that's working with higher frequency energies, more subtle energies. And to be honest, when I started at first, I didn't even understand it. Honestly, I used to just go for treatments, always feel great afterwards, and thought I wanted to understand it better, so I went for the training myself. So basically, we connect with different parts of the. So a treatment session would be you're lying as the client, you're lying on the bed, and I will come in and touch various parts of the body, and in each of those, what I'll be doing is connecting with an energy, as we call it, the issues in the tissues. So where the body will have stored these impacted, you're not good enough messages or whatever they are. And in each of those areas, we'll trigger the old emotion. Okay. So we might trigger something like the feeling of guilt. And that literally will be done by, I mightn't even talk during the session. Some clients you will, some you won't. But I would say I'll be touching various points. We'll say here, okay, and we'll be triggering the feeling of distrust. Okay, and then it's difficult to put words on it, I'll be allowing that energy to come out of the body and release it up my arms and out through me as a channel to just help you release it, and then we'll be imprinting a positive version of that, so from distrust to trust. From guilt to innocence, from a sense of obligation to freedom. Yeah. And we do that in various points of the body using different energies. There is, and I don't always introduce this into sessions because not everybody's belief system is ready to go there, but we do call on angelic energies. So we call on various angels at different parts of the body to help us to release the emotion and imprint the more positive one. And then in a full session, we'd also go on and do a little bit more work with the energies on, and I think this will tie into what you're doing in your space, is your soul mission. Because at the end of the day, I think to be fully integrated and fully functioning, we need goals, we need missions, and we need some kind of a framework. And the soul mission is the big one. Okay. So getting people in touch with that. So it's just a very gentle way. Sometimes clients will fall asleep. Sometimes people will see colours, sometimes people will have different sensations. I've had tears, but it's a very gentle, non-cognitive way to let go of things. You don't even need to process. So, when we said with EFT, we named it and we acknowledged it and we let it go. This is at a level kind of, if you want to go deeper or higher, whichever way you want to put it, of just letting a more gentle release of these deeply held, as we say, the issues in the tissues. Yeah. The stuff that has been embedded for a long, long time. Yeah. And we don't need to process it. So if you fall asleep, it's kind of the soul is saying, do you know what, no, Brain, you go to sleep, we'll sort this, we'll clear this. So it's a longer treatment, takes about an hour and a half for a session, and people will generally feel lighter afterwards, and calmer at a more fundamental, at a deeper level. Sure. So an ideal for me is when I have a client for 3 kinesiology sessions and then we do IET at the end. At the end. It's a lovely is a lovely rhythm to that. And
that sounds fantastic,
yeah, nice
like a
journey.
complementary thing,
Yeah.
that would complement it.
Yeah, and I think as well, if I've had someone for kinesiology for a couple of sessions, there's a trust there that would allow them to think about moving into more. Because a lot of people are a bit wary of energy work and woo woo, and you know, angels mightn't be in everybody's belief system, so it's not for everybody. But those who have tried it just absolutely love it. And
But I mean, that is the kernel of what I'm trying to do here, is trying to showcase different modalities for people, different ways to approach whatever issue is causing or driving stress or discomfort or whatever it is.
and there's
in your
no
life.
one size fits all for that.
There isn't,
so, yeah.
you know, and so I mean, to speak about energy healing, which is actually, from what I can see, it's exploding on the scene. More and more people are getting into energy healing. They're buying into it hugely, maybe because they're not seeing great results with conventional therapies, and
Yeah.
which they have their place and they're fantastic, and that's that. But on the other side of the house, then you do have the energy healers, who are fantastic as well, you know. And as I say, I've seen people, you know, extol absolute benefits, you know, with energy healing, rightly, because I've seen it myself, you know, and
Yeah.
I've experienced it.
It's just it's a leap for some people,
Yeah.
and we need to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
You know, but it is becoming more mainstream. I think Reiki is even covered on the NHS. You know, so that's a big leap forward in people's belief systems, and as I say, with any of these modalities, they don't harm.
Yeah.
They will most likely help, and just going into a room with someone whose purpose is there to help you heal is healing in and of itself. Just
True.
giving yourself the time, you know, giving and saying I'm worthy of this, because under all of these, it has to be about self-worth, and it has to be about saying I'm worth giving the time to sort out these issues so I can live a better life, live a more fulfilled life for me. Then you can be everything for everybody else, because I think a large part of stress is being everything for everybody else all the time,
Isn't
and
it?
not being there for yourself.
Yeah.
So whatever modality you find,
Yeah.
as long as it puts you front and centre for just that half an hour or hour, whatever it might take.
Yeah.
And even if you're driving to work and you take the 5 minutes to do a little bit of tapping before you meet the boss or whatever it is, it's putting you there and saying, I need to, if I'm not well, the rest of it does. You can't, I always say, you can't give from an empty vessel. So taking the 5 minutes or the hour, or giving yourself the treatment, or having the massage, or going for the walk, or you know, whatever it is,
Yeah.
then you can give, but
Yeah.
you can't give from an empty vessel. So.
And just to touch back on something that you said earlier as well, which is, I'm reminded actually of Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score. That's a fabulous phrase, you know, the issues in the tissues, because as we all know, stress can exhibit in tension through the body, you know, neck ache, you know, back ache, headaches, eye aches, that kind of thing. And which is all, I suppose, in a way, it's energy moving around and getting stuck.
Or getting stuck. That's it.
Exactly, getting stuck, and so the body will tell you, you know, it will ring the warning bells early
Absolutely.
on, and for somebody to come along and to get relief, you know, through energy healing, it sounds like a fabulous prospect, you know. But no, listen, I'm conscious I'm taking up all your time here. We've had a fantastic conversation, and we could talk all day.
We could.
Sharon.
And we probably will.
Which is great. And I have a feeling this is not going to be the last session. So I'd like to come back and probably focus on one in particular and really explore that, be it the kinesiology or one of the other two. It doesn't really matter.
Absolutely. We've
but all I
scratched
can
the
say-
surface today.
That's
anyway.
all. But it's just about giving people at home and watching on the Let's Stress space a taster, you know, and they can reach out to you, of course, obviously, if they're in Cork, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, to find out more.
Yeah.
But it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
As
It's always a
usual.
pleasure. Yeah.
All of the links will be in the description of this video, guys, and all I can say is a very, very sincere, heartfelt thanks to Sharon Murphy for joining me today.
Thank you for letting me talk about it. It's my passion. So
The
thank you.
pleasure is mine, and thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you.
See you next time.